Hello, everyone, and welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving headfirst into a concept that's, well, it's pretty mind-bending. It's all about the dimensions of reality. We're going to break down some seriously complex philosophical ideas about how we actually experience the world, but we're doing it in a way that's structured, fun, and totally applicable to your everyday life. I mean, if you've ever found yourself just tangled up in knots during a debate with a friend over what's true, what's just an opinion, or what's an absolute fact, then you are in the exact right place. Let's make some sense of reality together, shall we? Okay, let's jump right into this. Have you ever confused the terms relative and subjective? Seriously, think about it. Most of us do, right? We do it literally all the time. But here's the thing. Misunderstanding these two distinct concepts creates massive confusion in how we interact with the world and, honestly, with each other. So to clear up this super common misunderstanding, I want to invite you to take a seat at our conceptual dining table. Section 1, the four pillars and the dining table analogy. Let's set the scene. So, the source material we're looking at today introduces this absolutely brilliant framework. It basically argues that any interaction we have with reality involves four distinct dimensions. Think of them like the four pillars of reality. And to really wrap our heads around how they work together, we're going to imagine a massive, grand feast. Let's start with the first pillar, the absolute. Now, the absolute dimension is the furthest, totally unchangeable boundary of reality. It's the fixed foundation where all of our interactions actually take place. Going back to our feast analogy, the absolute is the physical table itself. You can't argue with the table, you definitely can't eat the table, it's solid, it's there, and it provides this unmoving, inescapable setting that just grounds everything else we're about to experience. Now, moving from the table to the actual food, we hit our second pillar, the relative. When you sit down at this absolute table, you're handed a menu, right? You're presented with a massive spread of food. This dimension represents the neutral menu of possibilities served upon the table, and here is where a lot of people trip up. A common mistake is thinking the word relative means relatively right or wrong. No, actually, scratch that. It absolutely doesn't. These dishes are completely neutral. I mean, having soup or a salad or a huge steak on the menu isn't inherently right or wrong. It simply represents the diverse reality of possibilities available to you. Just options. Which brings us to pillar number 3, the subjective. This is where you come in. You are the diner sitting at the table, actively weighing your options, trying to adapt and choose the absolute best dish from that relative menu based on your personal needs. And listen, this is a huge takeaway. The concepts of right and wrong finally enter the picture right here. Why? Because the subject, that's you, is making an active choice. You're guessing, you're perceiving, you're trying to find the right dish for your specific appetite. Maybe you have allergies or specific dietary needs. The truth or falsehood of that choice belongs entirely to your subjective experience. Finally, we hit the fourth pillar, the objective. So let's say you, or maybe a whole group of diners sitting with you at the table, make a subjective choice. You test it out, and you arrive at a solid decision. If you all agree, hey, this hot soup is the perfect choice for a freezing cold day, well, that shared decision becomes objective. But, and this is a big but, this is a final decision deemed correct only at that specific table for that specific time based on your limited experiments. It's basically the outcome of subjective decisions that have been validated and deemed accurate for that specific moment and that specific group. Section 2, relative versus subjective. Let's dig into the core conflict here. Now that our table is fully set with our four pillars, absolute, relative, subjective, and objective, we really need to talk about a major issue. The problem is mixing up neutral options with right and wrong choices. When people casually say, well, the truth is relative, they are almost always using the wrong word. What they're doing is taking the neutral menu of reality and incorrectly assigning right and wrong to it. But remember, the menu just is. It's just a list of diverse stuff. If we want to untangle these concepts for good, we have got to stop blaming the menu for the choices the diner makes. To really cement this, let's compare these two directly. Think about relative as neutral, diverse possibilities. It's the sheer variety of the universe. There is no right or wrong here, just different options. On the flip side, subjective is where all the action happens. It's the right or wrong choice made by the subject adapting to that menu. Look, if you choose a blazing hot, incredibly spicy dish and you have a stomach ulcer, that is a wrong subjective choice for you, right? The dish itself wasn't wrong. Your subjective adaptation to the relative options was. Nailing down this difference will completely change how you analyze literally every argument. Moving on to Section 3, the limits of objectivity. So what happens once a group actually reaches an objective agreement? We tend to, worship objectivity. We treat it as if it's the absolute universal truth for all time. But the source text gives us a massive warning here. Objectivity is actually incredibly fragile. It is strictly confined to its specific reality. Remember our dining table? An objective decision at one dining table might completely fall apart or change at another table because the rules of adaptation change. Imagine a group of diners at a table in the freezing Arctic. They objectively agree that a boiling hot stew is the perfect meal. That objectivity is absolutely true for their reality. But take that exact same objective conclusion to a table in the middle of the Sahara Desert. Suddenly, it's completely wrong. And that's because there are all these variables that constantly change the ground beneath what we call objective. We're talking about different realities, different global contexts, different geographic areas, or entirely different communities. Subjectivity isn't just about people having different opinions. It's about people existing in completely different contexts. Because objectivity is built on the foundation of a specific reality. Anytime the context or the community shifts, the subjective adaptations shift. And therefore, the objective conclusions absolutely must change too. Objectivity is limited to its specific crowd, period. Section 4. Is your decision realistic? Moving beyond objectivity. So the crucial point is this. If objectivity is limited and subjective choices are just our best, sometimes flawed attempts to adapt to relative options on an absolute table, what's the actual goal here? Well, the source material introduces a total paradigm shift. Objective isn't necessarily realistic. Just because a group of people at a table agrees on something objectively does no way mean it actually works in practice for anyone else, or honestly, even for themselves in the long run. You can have a perfectly objective, 100% agreed upon consensus that is entirely disconnected from reality. So how do we actually test this? How do we know if an objective decision works in the real world? The source provides 3 super practical metrics for a reality check. Step 1, capability to manifest the decision. Like, can you actually make it happen? Step 2, pragmatic usefulness. Is it actually useful to you or your community in daily practice? And step 3, closeness to the ideal goal. Does executing this decision actually bring you closer to what you set out to achieve in the first place? If an objective decision fails these 3 tests, well, it's just not realistic. To sum up this incredibly pragmatic point, your true degree of objectivity is literally measured by how realistic its execution is. It's about whether you can actually build the bridge, not just talk about it. True reality checks require tangible, useful application. It's just not enough to win a debate or form a theoretical consensus with your friends. If your objective truth cannot be manifested, if it isn't practically useful, and if it doesn't move you toward your goal, then your objectivity is incredibly shallow. The highest form of interacting with reality is executing decisions that actually work. So I want to leave you with this one final provocative question. Think about your own life, your own strongly held beliefs, and those objective facts you share with your community. At which reality table are you currently sitting? Are you confusing the neutral relative menu of the world with your own subjective choices? And most importantly, are your objective conclusions actually realistic and useful in your everyday life? I really hope this explainer has given you a powerful new lens to view the world through. Thank you so much for joining me at the table today, and hey, keep questioning the dimensions of your reality.